When did someone's ego write checks their body couldn't cash? I was planning to save 5,000 jobs until their 58-year-old CEO spent an hour explaining basic math to me, so I decided to buy his company just to fire him. It all started when I landed at JFK at 5 a.m. and saw I had 47 missed calls from Ricardo Brennan, and his voicemails got increasingly desperate with each one. By the time I listened to the last message where he was practically begging for a meeting before his noon board meeting, I already knew his company was in trouble since their stock had dropped 73% in 6 months. The interesting part was that his warehouses were perfectly positioned for my expansion plans, so I decided to go to the meeting. I texted my CFO that I would handle this one personally since something about his desperation felt off. When I walked into his conference room around 7 that morning, Richard was already there pacing back and forth with sweat stains under his arms. He looked up at me and his whole demeanor changed from panic to annoyance. Without even asking my name, he immediately pointed to a chair and told me to sit down and take notes for whoever my boss was. I tried to introduce myself, but he literally held up his hand to stop me from talking and said he didn't have time for pleasantries from an assistant. Once he decided I was just an assistant, I watched him transform from a desperate CEO into the most condescending person I had ever met. At first, his disrespect was subtle as he started explaining his entire career history, as if he wasn't going bankrupt at the moment. He told me that in his 30 years of business, he had never seen such disrespect as sending someone who probably didn't even understand what a merger was to negotiate a partnership. While organizing papers on his desk, he kept glancing at me and commenting on how my generation expected to run companies without putting in the real work. I just stayed silent and simply took notes like he asked, but he interpreted that as evidence that I really was just an assistant, and his comments became bolder. He started explaining that my boss clearly didn't understand how real business worked if they thought sending someone like me would impress him. He told me directly that whoever ran my company was probably some tech kid who got lucky with timing and would be bankrupt within 2 years without his help. He actually laughed while saying that my entire company's revenue was probably less than what he spent on his car collection last month. The disrespect became more personal when he started making assumptions about me directly, saying I probably got my job because I was someone's niece or daughter rather than having any actual skills. He told me that when he took over the company, people like me would be the first to go because he only kept employees who added real value. His confidence grew with each insult as he explained that he had destroyed dozens of companies like mine by pretending to help them before taking everything they had built. Then Richard crossed into truly malicious territory by turning his computer screen toward me and showing me confidential documents from our internal servers. He explained that our cybersecurity was so pathetic that his tech team had hacked our entire system in less than an hour as a weekend project. As he clicked through our private employee salaries, internal emails, and strategic plans, he told me exactly how he planned to use this information to poach our best clients and employees while pretending to be our partner. He said he would string us along for 6 months, learning everything about our operations before executing a hostile takeover that would leave my boss with nothing. The height of his cruelty came when he leaned back with absolute confidence and looked me directly in the eyes while delivering what he thought was his killing blow. Tell your boss I want 70% ownership and every single person in your office under 30 gets fired on day 1 because I don't work with children. Right as those words left his mouth, his assistant burst through the door looking terrified about the board arriving early. When Richard dismissed him saying he was busy with a secretary, the assistant held up his phone and said the words that changed everything. But sir, this is your meeting with Ms. Carter.